Hey, that's how you know I've rehearsed, because I didn't even need to look at my notes. I remember number one straight away. So number one is basically your first brand doesn't have to be your last. But so what do you think of that one though, before I go into it though?
Yeah, like I think a lot of brands not a lot of brands, a lot of people do that. Like they'll have a brand. We know a couple of people that have started brands first, and then they've had like legal issues, and then they've had to start another one. It's all about, I think, as long as you stick to like your principles within like the fashion, like what you're creating in terms of your brand, then it shouldn't be a problem. Obviously, it might be difficult to get your new brand out there, but if you've got the reputation that you had from your old brand, you should be good.
So true. In fact, hey, Rash, I put you on the spot there, but you handled it though.
Just
Coming like Saka with a penalty.
come and clutch, man.
Coming clutch. But yeah, literally, I'll echo everything Rash said. I think to some people may say that the point I've just made is obvious, but I don't think it's as obvious as people think. Because having started the platform, whatever, and had conversations with different people and tracked different people's journeys, sometimes I feel as though people feel like they have to stick with something even when maybe they've outgrown it or the brand isn't doing what they wanted it to do. And I think that often comes down to a number of things where you feel like you've obviously put in a lot of effort into building like that brand name, and you're like, you obviously don't want to relinquish that, do you know what I'm saying? You don't want to get rid of that. But I feel like from having done this podcast and spoken to all the different people that we've spoken to, a lot of people have reached that point where they thought, should I start a new brand? And have decided to start one, despite the fact that that can come with a lot of risk. Do you know what I'm saying? And to me, when I make that point, I think the two main people that stand out are Terrell, who runs a brand called Rauchan and I, and echoing Rash's point about legal issues, Risha Boa. So I'll start off talking about Terrell. So for those of you who watched the episode, Terrell, you'll know that Terrell had a brand called Blessed Individual before. Great brand, smashing it, was going viral on Twitter. He was doing really well with the brand, and this is a brand that he had when he was a bit younger. Also, this brand was a lot more like graphics based, and it was less like, I don't say conceptual, but it was less of the lane that Terrell is in now. And Terrell was in that luxury, he's in that luxury streetwear space, you know what I'm saying? And then being in that space, you need to have different types of skills. And the reason I kind of position it like that is because as to some, it may seem as though it's not that big of a pivot, but for Terrell, it was quite a big deal. Obviously, the Blessed Individual brand had huge meaning, and you can tell from the name, and it was a huge part of his fashion story. But from listening to Terrell that day, I could see that Terrell felt as though he outgrew that brand, and that brand could no longer do what he wanted to do within fashion, if that makes sense. So I feel like it's important to separate yourself from the brand that you've built, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think Terrell is a fantastic example. He's obviously got Royal Avenir now, and now he's doing like cut and sew pieces. He released a wavy varsity jacket not too long ago. I think he's on his maybe his second collection now or third collection, but he's smashing it. And he wouldn't be doing what he's doing now if he didn't take the leap to say, you know what, as much as I've built a great brand with Blessed Individual, I have different goals within fashion now, because importantly, I've grown as a person, so now let me just start a new brand. So you really have to be brave in that sense. And in the Risha Boa example, obviously, for those who know Reese's story, he had a brand called Saint London, and Saint London was doing incredible things. Obviously, Reese's, that's my guy, you know what I'm saying? We've grown up together, so I saw Saint London from almost like its inception to the point where, unfortunately, he had to stop the brand. You know, they did incredible things where he had Future wearing it, he had Young Thug wearing it, he had a shop, just bare people wearing it. And in the ends, everyone was wearing it. He done a pop-up store in Grove, like, bruv, Reese was smashing it. And by no fault of his own, legal issues meant that he had to stop the brand. And I think it's important to mention this episode and this story, because in cases like that, if somebody believed that, okay, they can only have one brand in life, then that's the end of Reese's journey, do you know what I'm saying? But he's taken all his learnings from St. London and he's put that into his eponymous brand now, Yaboa, and he's killing it. I was at his launch, which was in, I think it was the Tate Modern. Bro, I've never seen nothing. Rash, remember when I'll show you the video?
Yeah,
bro, I've never seen nothing,
I can't lie.
Crazy.
It was like your first like fashion show, like.
I think it was, you know.
Yeah, like when
and bro,
like
it
a
set
runway
the
and stuff
bar
like that. Yeah.
so high. I was like, what? Bro, drinks, and bro, patterned. But yeah, I think his story is one that, if you haven't listened to the episode, I'm basically just going to use this episode as a way to plug all the episodes you've had in the past, you know. So if you haven't had a chance to take in Reese's story, please do that. And I think those two people in particular really show us that, yo, yes, you can have a brand, but if you start to develop as a person, your goals start to change, then it's perfectly fine to create a new one.
Even with like the Reese one, yeah, like obviously some people probably have the choice of just like starting a new brand, but he was kind of forced into it. But maybe this is a blessing in disguise, because obviously from what I've seen anyway, like there's differences between like St. London and your Boa. So I feel like with your Boa so far, it's been like not as like graphic based as it is now. So maybe that's the direction he's kind of going in now, and he's focusing more on like the quality. Not that he said he didn't before, but obviously because his first brand was like kind of like grassroots, like he was like learning on designs, and he probably wasn't like well informed like the quality back then as he is now. So maybe like it's not always a bad thing that you need to kind of be forced in the end, start again, kind of
Facts.
thing. Yeah.
I totally agree with Rash. Literally, like, it's good Rash made that point, because I was kind of coming from the angle like you always have a choice, but sometimes you don't have a choice. Do you know what I mean? So what do you do in those situations? And your Boa is a great example. I forgot to mention his collaboration with Cos, and I think the point Rash was making about going from almost like graphics based, going from like being a graphic designer type brand owner to like what people consider as like a fashion designer.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important distinction to make, because not to say unfortunately, but when you want to do certain things within fashion, I feel like right now, the way the fashion world works is like you kind of have to do the fashion designer stuff to a certain degree. Like you eventually have to start doing the cut and sew stuff. And sometimes you just need to start a whole new brand to basically do that. So, thank you for watching another episode of Where's My Podcast. If you ever want to take in future episodes on the go, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Whilst you're there, please leave us a 5-star review. It would really help. And also, don't forget to follow us on our Instagram, WMTV_LDN, to keep up to date with the latest goings on in UK fashion. Keep it locked.